Hi, and welcome to this analysis of the EL Car Company case. It's the final ever T4 case study exam, which an element of sadness for me. I've been working through T4 now and analysing T4 case studies for 8 years. And this is going to be the final one. No doubt CIMA will have lots of new things for the new case studies as they come along. But I know that for many of you, you want to pass this exam now before the new case study comes along, while it's familiar, while we know what to expect, because much as CIMA are going to help us to get to grips with the new case studies when they come along in 2015, it is going to be new. It is going to be hard before we've seen a few to really know exactly how they're going to test it and exactly how they're going to approach it. Whereas the beauty with T4 this time, we've seen, 15 years of exams of this style, of this approach. We know how they work. We know how to guide you. With all my experience, I can tell you exactly what to do to pass. I've seen thousands and thousands of students, some pass, some failed, what causes them to pass and fail, and so on. So really, really good for if we can get as many people through on this particular case. So let me tell you a little bit about me and what we're going to do in this video and the video series as a whole. So, as I've already said, I've had, my name's Nick Best. I've had 8 years of T4 experience. I wrote the official CIMA learning system back in 2010 with the examiner, worked with the examiner closely on the official CIMA learning system. I've written tens, 20, must be 50, 60, 70 mocks in my time. So I've got huge experience in writing T4 mock exams, case studies. I've marked thousands of scripts at T4. I've taught T4 at BPP, at Kaplan, at First Intuition, at Reed Business School, as a freelance tutor. I've taken the Astranti courses for a number of years now. I've done lots of one-to-ones, helping people who are typically the one-to-ones are people who have really struggled to pass T4. I've helped people that have failed this exam 8, 10 times to finally get through. And really, in this video series, what I want to do is share that experience with you and share that experience in analysing the EL Car Company case with you so that I can bring all that knowledge to add to what you do. Look, there's no getting away from the fact you need to analyse this case study, the EL Car Company case study. But what I can do is help guide you in the right direction, give you my thoughts and my experience. Okay. So in this whole video series, I'm going to be going through, firstly, section by section through the case. And we'll go through probably about page, 2 pages at a time, picking up the key points. And I'll give you my guidance on what that means for the industry, the car industry, and the way the car industry works and who the key players are and how that industry relates to the company, this company, EL Cars, and how we need to see our cars in the context of the industry, in the context of the VWs and the Toyotas and the BMWs and all the other players, Ford and so on, and where they stand and what that means from a challenge point of view. And going on from that, then, what we're going to do is talk about each of the different business models, mostly the business strategy type models like SWOT and PEST and 5 Forces and Ansof's matrix and the strategic stakeholder matrix and so on. The ones that, what I'll focus on are the ones that are really important to you in the exam. And what we'll do is we'll analyse from those models with a goal of, at the end, coming up with a full strategic analysis. Okay. Then what we'll do is we'll look at likely exam issues. There are hints throughout the case studies of what the kind of issues are that are going to come up in the exam. And over recent cases, I've had some really good success. It surprised me, actually, in the last couple of exams, just how accurate the points that I say are going to come up actually do come up in the exam. Of course, I use these to develop the mock exams that we produce here at Astranti. But here, what I want to do is sort of share with you what I think that they are hinting at is going to come up in the exam. That can really help you, of course, to prepare for what the most likely issues are Just to give you an example, in the last exam, my top 3 issues came up in the first exam on the last case study. So, unlike most of the past exams, it is reasonably, I was going to say, easy to predict what's going to come up in this exam from a subject point of view. You never know the exact details of what will come up. But anyway, that's what we're going to do as part of this case study. I'm going to be sharing those with you. I'm also going to be sharing with you exam hints and tips as I go through. But basically, my telling you how to answer the exam is on my course, the Astranti course. But as things occur to me that are relevant to this case study, I will bring up relevant hints and tips as we go through. Once we've got to the end of the case, having been through all of the sections, done financial analysis and all those things, I will then pull together a full strategic analysis of all the business strategy models and work that through with you. Now, if you are just watching the free video that's on YouTube, which is the first video of the series of videos that we've got here, then you can get that strategic analysis as a free download with all the models in it. What you won't have is the video of me talking you through it, explaining what I think the analysis are. Of course, if you sign up for the full video series, you can have that as well, of course. Then I'm going to talk you through my top 10 issues and why I think those are the most important ones, and what you need to do to prepare for those top 10 issues. So I have a range. Most likely, I'm here sort of recording the first one right now, obviously, but we're most likely have 4 if not more hours worth of analysis for you on this case study. It's really my goal to use all my experience to help you prepare as best you can for the exam. Okay. We'll also do a models review. So if you just want a bit of a recap of your business models before looking at the business strategy, then there's a video in there for you as well. Okay, this is how it'll work then. So section by section, I will tell you, right, we are going to do the next probably page and a half, something like that. And what I will then, I will be assuming you haven't read through the case up to this point. You've got no prior knowledge of that section or indeed any later sections. And so that you can basically work through the videos with me as I work through the case, basically. So that, no prior knowledge, you can read a section, and what I won't do is I won't refer to things later on in the case. I will just say, right, in this section, this is what to learn, and perhaps we'll see if we can get more information on that later. What are we looking for later on as we go through? So you can work through the case with me effectively through these videos. But what I will expect you to do is that I will give you a section and I'll say, right, do this section now. You will then be expected to go and read that section, make your own notes, do your own analysis before coming back, and I'll give you my review. I know it's going to be tempting just to listen to my views, but you will gain if you think it through first. And I'm going to be trying to encourage you to do that. Okay. At the end, we'll go through the full strategic analysis and my top 10 issues. We'll see how we go, deal with some of the models as we go through. But we'll sort of see how we go as far as that's concerned, and whether we've completed any of those models early enough to see some of them and the context of the case as we go through. Okay. So, my first little exam hints and tips section for you, and these are notes on the pre-scene. Now beware, the pre-scene is the context, it's the background. You've all seen this at strategic level. Some of you will be coming to T4 case study again if you failed last time, and you will know hopefully that you should not be pre-preparing answers based on the pre-scene. You should see it as your information about the company, its position. Okay. Don't pre-write anything based on this. Don't have too many preconceived ideas of how you want to solve the business. But crucially, you must use it to deal with the unseen, the information you get on the day of the exam. It is important background, and it must be used. Your recommendations must be consistent with the strategic analysis. If on the day of the exam you are basing your answers solely on what's on the day of the exam without taking this background into account, you will not score well on the recommendations. So for instance, let's say we find from our analysis that the company are a cost leader, and you make some suggestion that's not consistent with that, then your answers on the day will be marked poorly. You cannot just deal with it on the day. You use it as context. Okay? So that's what I'm going to be trying to do. Build that context, build that background. And when we get to our sort of final videos, the strategic analysis and the top 10 issues, I want to try and guide you in the direction of the types of recommendations you should or shouldn't be making on the day of the exam based on that background. Okay, look, the reality is it's the new issues on the day of the exam that are the ones to deal with, but they must be dealt with in this background. Okay, well, look, enough of this introduction. Let's get on and let's me have a look with you through the first section of the case. So here is our case study. And what I want you to do now then, as I mentioned, is I'd like you to read through the first section. Now, I'm going to be doing my first section down to at the bottom, just here. Okay, down to that paragraph, today EL employs 4,500 people. Okay, so it's down to this section here. So go away, get your copy of the case and read that section through. Now, this is what I want you to look for as you're reading this section. Look for this section. There's a note of critical success factors. Now, remember, a critical success factor is something that the business needs to do successfully if it's going to be successful in this industry. So whenever you see a critical success factor, put next to it CSF. Okay. What you'll also find in this section is there's background information about the company and its history. And with that in mind, just take that with a pinch of, if it was something from 30, 40 years ago, maybe that's not relevant now. So we just need to just watch out. So that's my second. Just take care. Is it telling us about where the business is now, or is it where it was and background? Background can be useful, okay? But just watch out for that, okay? Any other models you think might be useful, if you think that there might be use of, I mean, for instance, I can just tell you in advance here, I'm going to be using a little bit of PEST in this section. As I said, critical success factors. I'll have a little bit of strengths and weaknesses for the SWOT analysis, so you might find a couple of those as well as anything else and any other models that you think might be useful. I've got a bit of Porter's five forces in here as well, one element of that. So if you can see any relevance to any of those models, then raise those as you're going through reading. So stop the video there, go through to that first section, and then put the video back on and I'll give you my views on this section of the case. Okay, so welcome back. So I hope you've gone through and read that through, but whatever. Let me give you my views on this section then. So let me tell you where I'm going to start. I'm actually not going to start at the top up here. I'm going to start sort of going further. In fact, I tell you what I will do. I will start up here. Okay, we have got EL Car Company. Okay, and they are based in country X, which lies in Asia. Okay, and I want to build into that the very last of the paragraphs I was suggesting that we will have a look through, which is down here, which is where it tells us that this is a company which has 4% of the world market, 12% of its home market, and revenues of 26 billion in 2014. So my first thing is, where do they stand in the world context of car companies? Although this is a made-up company, we treat them as if they are acting in the real world, competing against all the real world competitors that are out there in the world. So let me start off by giving you some information then. Here are the top 5 companies in the car industry by revenue. So who do you think might be number 1? Let you answer yourself. Okay. Volkswagen is the world's leading car company by revenue. They have a revenue of $270 billion. Okay, everything we're going to do in this case is in dollars. You'll see the financial information later on is in dollars. It's the general way that in this industry it works. Okay, you will see other currencies used occasionally. For instance, I was looking through some accounts for Toyota, and not surprisingly that was all in yen. Of course it would be for a Japanese company, but by and large we'll try and do everything, convert everything into dollars. Okay. Just from an exam point of view, you may well have to deal with currencies and currency conversions and so on. We're talking about a company that operates worldwide, a worldwide industry. So although dollars might be the one that the case is on, we might have to deal with companies in different currencies. There may be currency risks. Bear that one in mind. I've certainly been part of some of the recent exams because these global companies are very common. Okay, let's have a look at company number 2, which is Toyota. Toyota may be more relevant to us than VW. The reason being that Toyota is an Asian company. One thing that you'll notice in this section that we've got in front of us here, we don't know what company this is sort of based upon, but what we do know is it said that EL found itself operating in a war-ravaged country in the late 1940s in country X, which sort of sounds a little bit like it might be Japan. We don't know. It talks here about the end of World War II and how they grew by renovating these sort of dilapidated army vehicles. You know, all of this section just here is just simply sort of history and background that really isn't going to make that much focus for us, not here in 2014, but it's useful to know. The point I want to raise is that we could be talking about a Japanese car company. We probably are. That's probably what the examiner's got in mind. Could be maybe South Korean. We've got a couple of South Korean players, haven't we? Like Kia, Hyundai. Although the Kias and the Hyundais tended to cut into the market much later. Kia really didn't start making cars until about 1986. Hyundai was 1967. And so, we're probably, the examiner's thinking here more some of the early Japanese companies. We're talking about Toyota, Mazda, Nissan, Honda. These are the big Japanese companies that, of course, we still know today. Anyway, let's carry on with our list of the big companies. Okay, so Toyota is 210 million. Now, sorry, not million, billion. I'm talking huge revenues here. One difference between VW and Toyota, you may have been surprised that VW is the biggest car company. But perhaps what you're not aware of, and it's something that's really going to be really important when you're doing your industry research, is that under the VW brand, as well as VW, you've got Audi, you've got Skoda, you've got Porsche, you've got Bentley, and as a kind of consumer, often we see all of those as being completely different brands. Actually, they're all owned by the same company. And you do need to watch out for that. Mazda, for instance, had a very close working relationship with Ford for many years until 2010. Actually, they're independent again now. But there have been a lot of the brands are owned by one big company. Toyota mostly is Toyota, which is one of the differences. Anyway, perhaps now you understand why VW is the biggest when you add all the revenues from all their different brands together. Next, we've got Daimler, and Daimler's revenues are 162 billion. So, of course, Daimler's we associate with Mercedes, obviously huge, big global brand. In sort of higher market, higher quality area. We've got General Motors, who have brands such as Chrysler, Opel, Chevrolet. In the UK, it's Vauxhall. So again, we've got General Motors with these wide variety of different brands within their groups. 155 billion. And I'll stop at number 5, which is Ford on 146 billion. So look, we can see there are some huge global players, And there's absolutely no doubt for EL Company that Importers 5 Forces that we are going to have high competition. You can even see that someone like VW, you're not just competing about VW, you're competing with all the different VW brands, all of their sort of sub-brands. So it is an extremely competitive market with very powerful competitors that are extremely wealthy, most of them. So with that in mind then, it's going to be, it's a very competitive market to be in. EL have done well, actually, as we'll find out as we go through. They've done well to do as well as they have, given the competition in this particular marketplace. So if I go down to this little section down the bottom here, I do have, there's just a couple more points to make here. One is that they've got 4% of the worldwide market and their revenues are 26 billion. So if they're 26 billion, and we compare them with these ones up here, they really are quite a lot smaller than most of those competitors. And with that in mind, what can we think about strategically? Well, we can say that it may be, I'm going to put it as a weakness, so call it W there. It may be difficult to get economies of scale similar to the big competitors. So EL are producing, what will that be? It's only 1/10 of what VW are. And so it's unlikely that I'll get economies of scale. They won't be able to spend so much on R&D and on marketing. And that's difficult to compete. They're going to need a very clear focused strategy to be competing against those big players in this market. It's also worth noting this point about the home market. So there's definitely a strength in the home market with that 12% market share. And now this is what I can just give you an idea of context. Okay, now I talked earlier about the importance of context in the exam on the day of the exam. What you don't want to be doing is advising some fantastic international growth strategy that's going to mean that the home market is less strong, because this is their base. This is their a solid base of loyal customers, probably loyal to the home brand, the Country X brand, and we want to keep them happy. We don't want to lose those by going for international markets. So capitalize on the strengths and use those strengths. Okay, so we've got those 12% in the home market. We also, I should just highlight here as well, that they look set to achieve the distinction of being amongst the top 10 players. So what we've got here then is a growing company, which I would put down as a strength. So they're obviously doing something right. And as we go through the case, we can try and find out what that is. They've got challenges as well, but we need to balance that. But look, if they've been growing well, and as I said, we'll find out more as we go through, then a lot of what they've been doing we should support. We mustn't criticize things that have been successful. Well, we might do a little bit maybe, but just watch out. If it's been successful, there are a lot of car companies haven't been successful in the last 10 years. And so, we need to bear that in mind. Okay. So look, let's go back. Let's take a look at some of this general background information. I'm not going to dwell on this simply because it's probably not relevant to where the business is now. Often in cases, they give us this sort of significant background information that isn't relevant. What we want to do is just look to see, is any of this relevant to the business now in 2014, because that's when our exam is based. Okay, so first of these then is the role of government. And of course, in our pest analysis, it's the political side of this that comes into here. And what we want to make sure then is that, basically the summary here is that EL grew through government support going back many, many years. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that governments do tend to support their local car companies. Just to give you a real life example from recent years, the US government basically bought 60% of General Motors in 2009 in basically to save General Motors. General Motors had got, basically they hadn't adapted to the changing world. They were inefficient, their cars weren't as good as some of the competitors, and when the financial crisis hit and the market for cars fell, they were one of the first to go into really difficult situation. And the US government thought, God, it's just a huge business. It's a huge US-based company. Can we afford for this company to go bust? And they basically decided no. Put huge amounts of money in. They bought General Motors and turned it around. They basically gave it a period to turn around, and they sold their shares in 2013. And General Motors actually has been a success story in the last 2 to 3 years. So they've really moved the business around. They had a new CEO. That's changed that business. But look, that's not the industry example here is not my point. The point here is governments do support their home-based companies. That could mean that the country X government could support EL right now, and that's just something for us to bear in mind as we go through doing our analysis. Let me put down here then past government support, and let's put possible future support if necessary. 12% of the home market, the government may continue to think that they are important. Okay. I also just want to pick up on the fact that the country supported the development of the technical knowledge and the country's education system, and certainly car manufacturing needs a significant amount of technical knowledge. We see a little bit further down here that EL has set up R&D facilities. Research and development is absolutely crucial in this industry. Just to give you some statistics on that, in 2011 Toyota spent $9.9 billion on research and development. That's a huge amount of money. You know, I talked earlier about the competitiveness in this industry. It's going to be very, very difficult. For EL won't be able to spend anywhere near like that amount of that sum on research and development. And yet being ahead in the technology in terms of developing efficient cars that are of a high quality, don't break down very much, that are adapting to changes in requirements for them to be fuel efficient, and moving to kind of electric cars or hybrid cars, which of course Toyota have been very, very big in. I'm sure that's where a lot of that money has gone. You do need significant research and development and the technical skills that go with that. And so very difficult for them to spend equivalently to a company like Toyota and be competitive from that point of view. And we'll review that idea as we go through the rest of the case. Just to give you some more figures then, we have got General Motors. They spent $8.1 billion. We have VW. They spent $7.7 billion. And so on. Okay, and Ford have a huge budget as well. So the big companies are spending a lot on R&D. R&D is a critical success factor, and it'd be my view that EL needs to spend, but spend wisely and carefully on their areas of focus for the cars that they produce. But look, if we come back to where we were, if you remember, we were talking about the role of the government, then technical knowledge and the education system, that's going to be important when it comes to R&D. And again, from a PEST point of view, we would put technical knowledge under the T. We'd probably actually put the social, the education under the S. And so one just sort of point on pest analysis. Pest analysis is one of the go-to models in this exam, and I think it's going to be useful in this particular case as well. I would say probably 50-60% of people will use pest analysis as an appendix in their report on exam day. Certainly one I recommend people use significantly. And I do think pest is going to be particularly useful when we think internationally. EL, as we find out shortly, are an international company. So it's not just about the politics, technical side, education in their home country. When you're operating internationally, you need to consider the PES factors in each of the countries you're operating. And so PES then is an international, useful model to examine different political, economic, social and technical factors worldwide. Okay. A little bit more about the background here. We find out for the first time about Mr. Tan, okay, who is the CEO, appointed in 1973. I don't want to talk about Mr. Tan too much here. He'll be in our, we'll talk about him in our next video because we find out a little bit more about Mr. Tan there. What we also find out in this section is that they grew, and they grew quickly in the 70s, by being modestly priced and producing a car that was modestly priced, low running costs, which quickly found favour amongst constrained motorists in foreign markets. And so it gives us an idea of what their basis of success was. Let's type this in here. If we were looking at Michael Porter's generic strategies, just as a reminder for you, that would be cost leadership, differentiation and focus. You could argue that that's kind of cost leadership, whereby we're producing a relatively low priced car which we're selling to cost constrained customers. So I'm just going to put cost leadership here with a question mark. You know, I have a slight issue over the cost leadership in that it's very hard for smaller companies to be the true cost leader. Remember, a cost leader is the lowest cost producer. It's not selling for the lowest price, it's the lowest cost producer. But this is obviously a cost leadership, perhaps focusing on small cars. That was where they began. We'll soon find out they're much wider than that now. But it's certainly something for us to bear in mind as we do our analysis, which is, have they moved away from a clear competitive strategy? Do they have a clear generic strategy? And if not, we'll try and think where we think that they will be. Okay, more analysis as we go through on that then. Okay, so they grew quickly in the 70s. They developed and have been successful by growing internationally. So they've moved into USA, Western Europe, and into those affluent markets there. Fine. Okay. Now, remember at the start I said, let's have a look at critical success factors in this company. And this is where some of the critical success factors really start to come in. So let me go through some of the ones that I can see here. First critical success factor is the network of suppliers. So I'm just going to put next to that CSF to signify critical success factors. So one key element of success of any car manufacturer is their relationship with all their parts suppliers. They need to produce these quickly and efficiently. We find out just down here, let's just find it, that very important to them is use of just-in-time stock management systems. Of course, you've studied these in your studies to date, whereby deliveries from suppliers come in just as they are needed on the production line, so that we can keep that stock and inventory down to an absolute minimum. We then produce products, so we deliver them out to our customers just when the customers need them. Often in the car industry, someone will put an order in, will produce that quickly and then deliver it to them some weeks later. That means there's very little end good stock, so that there's less chance of it of having wastage or obsolete stock that we can't sell or have to knock down prices and so on. And so, I mean, I come back to that in a moment, but this is where the network of suppliers comes in. Because very often on just-in-time systems, the suppliers are very near the factories, and they deliver in very, very short numbers of very, very regularly with small numbers of stock, so that therefore EL should be able to keep their levels of stock down, but therefore they're very dependent on those suppliers. Very often the trend is long-term relationships with these suppliers who we depend on very, very closely. They're going to be a key stakeholder, and we'll put those into Mendelow's matrix. Let's put it in here. We'll put those into Mendelow's matrix when we come to do Mendelow's matrix for our strategic analysis. Okay. Now, second key in a sense, stakeholder in this section are the distributors and the dealerships. And again, another critical success factor, let's just put it down here, is going to be the relationship with those. Now, in the car industry, you know, you go and you see a dealership down in your local town or down on the local high street or whatever, and they're normally these very flash, smart looking buildings with Toyota outside or VW or BMW or whatever it might be. Now, typically, those are not owned by the companies. Those are owned by independent dealers. And what they do is it's a bit like a franchise. They will buy the franchise to operate within that area and sell the cars in that area. Okay? Some of the car manufacturers do have their own, but the general trend in the industry is to use these independent dealerships. And therefore, it's going to be absolutely vital to partner, have very, very close relationships and partner with those dealers, work very closely with them, ensure that they know information about the products and how they're changing, that they know what the kind of marketing approach is, that they provide things consistent with the brand. We'd need very, very clear contracts with them in order to manage that relationship effectively. So look, I could easily see there being unseen issues around the dealerships. You could have I'm just thinking off the top of my head now, particular dealership in a particular country, and we've got one dealer that basically manages all the dealerships in that country, and then there's a problem with it, or they're thinking of moving to a different dealer, or they don't think that we're giving them enough, a different car manufacturer, for instance, or I don't know, a whole load of issues around dealership that I'm thinking now of mock issues I'm going to write, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of them. Okay. Of course, similarly with suppliers, I could see there being supplier-based issues. One thing when I'm writing mock exams that I find, and I sort of tell you about my experience writing mock exams, because of course the examiners have exactly the same experience when they're writing issues. But just my experience on supplier issues is it's extremely easy to write supplier-based scenarios and questions. And so they're very common. I no doubt have a few in my mock exams, but I'm pretty sure you'll get supplier-based issues in one of the two, if not both of the issues in the exam, because they're nice and easy. Some types of issue, dealership, have to be honest, that's going to be harder to write questions around. Suppliers, very, very easy. Okay, the examiner will find that too. So, okay. So I was really talking about these critical success factors here, and you know, while we're doing this, we'll leave this paragraph out, okay, just for the moment, because we've got to go to the appendix on that one. So let's just go down below. Now, one of the issues is they have got facilities all around the world. If we just come up just here, it says that we've got manufacturing and assembly plants in its home country X, but also other parts of Asia, North America, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, one in South America. And down here, they're kind of telling us a possible problem with all of that, which is managing those facilities. And so again, another critical success factor here is going to be effective management of facilities at a distance, particularly with the problems of culture, different cultures in different countries, in different manufacturing plants, and yet we want good quality, consistent products in each of those different markets. Languages is going to be another issue for a worldwide business like this. And so therefore that management, that communication, the processes that we use to ensure consistency every single time that a car is produced in the same way, irrespective of where that car is being produced, that's going to be absolutely key. I'm going to just put in there here then processes are key for consistency. So it's communication, processes to ensure consistency of approach, consistently good quality. Okay. So Let's take a look at this sort of final section here, which is all about the structure of the business. It tells a little bit about the structure here. They adopt this global product structure, but the best thing we can do is have a look at the structure in Appendix 1. So let's go and do that then. So here it is. And if you didn't read this through first time round, have a look through now, think what you think the strengths and weaknesses are, pause the video and come back and get my views. But I'm going to plow on assuming that you have looked at that. Okay, look, so here are my thoughts on this organisational structure. Okay, now first thought here is, okay, we've got head office at the top with the board of directors. And my first question is always around non-executive directors and governance. And for the moment, I'm also thinking here, what on earth is this advisory committee? And I can tell you we find out about this very shortly in the next section, in the next video. So I'm not going to go into that in too much. We'll deal with non-execs and governments and what this advisory committee does and how they work later on when we find more information about it. But, obviously I'm very interested in the whole idea of governance and having non-executive directors and an audit committee and a remuneration committee and a nomination committee, and how all of that governance is being managed to make sure that all stakeholder needs are being looked after. And so we will deal with that. Okay, but the next thing we've got is these head office functions. So obviously at head office they've got R&D, they've got finance, they've got quality control, engineering and so on. But what you'll notice is that down on the product divisions they've got sales, they've got marketing, they've got R&D, and they've got that in all of these different product divisions as well. And so that throws up some questions for me. Okay. Each of these could be possible unseen issues. So it could be that there's possible conflict with product divisions. If we're central, what could we say? Marketing, and we are looking at the brand of EL as a whole, and what have we got here? Mid-sized sedan models in Division A. They actually want the brand to be different or be more focused on mid-size and not on compact cars, not great big things. And therefore they don't think that there's the generic central approach of sponsoring, I don't know, the Olympics or whatever we've been sponsoring is actually right for their market and what they do. Then, there's potential for conflict. Very easily there. Look, production, we've got centralized production. What are they doing centrally, and how is that working in with the production in product division A? And so look, there's easily lots of room here for that possible conflict. Another possible issue is duplication. We've got, for instance, marketing in centrally, we've got it in division A, division B, division C, we've got and so on. We've got R&D in all those divisions. Not finance. Finance tends to be mostly central, looking at this here. But there's potential for duplication of effort in all of those as well. Also, while we're talking about these product-based divisions, how well do they work together is another issue. So it does say just down below, when models produced in one region are demanded in other regions, arrangements are made to ship them. But that's not really working together, is it? It's like, oh yeah, we're in a particular country and we need stuff from Product Division A, which is based in a different country, and we get it shipped to us. But how well do they work together? Let's say they're producing some new gadget that's going to appear in lots of these different cars. How is that organised? Is that done centrally here, and then certain divisions down here are then all using that, or is more research done as how it works for luxury models? Because actually they're going to need a different kind of gadget from the ones that are down here on the compact. And so one of the problems with a product-based structure like this is each of the products does all of their own work, and they don't effectively share information and work together, and we can end up spending a lot of excess money where it's not needed. Okay. The other issue with this is, if you notice down here, they say it's very complex, and the product divisions are broken down into geographical regions: Asia, North America, Europe. So basically, the structure isn't really complete, because here under Division A, we've then got Asia, we've then got North America, We've then got Europe. Okay, and these geographical regions, and actually others as well, possibly looking at the, they said such as, regions such as, so there could be others. Let's put, okay, and we've got that geographical split in each of these divisions. And so how well is let's take the Europe, how well is the European strategy, how well is that managed between each of these different product divisions? And do they all work independently? And how do they link through with the dealerships? And whoa, there's a lot of issues here. Okay, so possible lack of geographic focus and working together in geographic regions is a possible problem with the structure as it stands. Now, just to give you an idea, in the real world, General Motors use this kind of product-based strategy. Structure, sorry. Now, given General Motors almost went bust in 2008, 2009, it's probably not a great advert for it, to be fair. But it is out there in the real world. You know, we do see this. Toyota, on the other hand, have a geographical region focus to their structure. If I can spell region right, there we go. And so at least Toyota then are focusing on what are the needs of each of those local markets and getting a consistent group of products produced in that consistent way for each of those particular markets. Of course, you could argue then they potentially lose focus on products by being more geographical in nature, and so some kind of matrix structure might be optimum here. But big worldwide global company, very hard to get a really good clear structure that both meets geographical needs and each of your different product needs. So I do have concerns about EL's structure, and I do think that there is room here for the examiner, lots of room for the examiner to ask questions about structure, restructuring, conflict type issues, and so on. Okay, so there's my thoughts there. Let's just return back to our original section then and just bring this first video to a close. Been a long one, this one, with all the introduction and so on. Okay, wow, a lot of scenario to work through as we skim through that there. Okay, here we go then. So just to bring this to a close then, I think that the key most likely issues from what we've done so far, there's no doubt restructuring of some kind, or structural, but conflict I think is going to be something which like to come out from that kind of structure, or some kind of restructuring to overcome conflict, or to be more efficient, or to focus on geographic markets could be a possible solution coming in just there. I think that big section on government, maybe that's been put in there for political issues in country X, maybe political support or working with the government in some way. So I could easily see something on politics. We did have a big section on politics 2 exams ago in the YJ case. So we know that the examiners do like political issues. So possibly something on that. I think it's probably less likely than the restructuring, if I'm honest. Definitely issues around suppliers, I think is a very likely one. Distributors or dealerships. Actually, the one other thing I've missed out here is IT. I mustn't actually miss that out, must I? So they have to have highly developed IT systems in order to manage and control operations. Another critical success factor. Okay, but we're going to find out more about all these things, I've got no doubt, as we go through the rest of the case. But just for the time being, let's leave it at that. All these critical success factors, big opportunities for issues, and hopefully we'll find more information as we go through the case to decide what they are. So that is the end of the first video. If you are watching you've got the whole video series, go on now, move on to the second video. If this is just the only one, you're watching the free one on YouTube and you're not going to be having the rest of them, I've just got a couple of thoughts for you. Okay, and first thing is hopefully I've given you a guide to what you should be doing as you're going through this pre-scene, the types of things you should be looking for as you go through. Try and look for each of the key business strategy models as you go, and then when you get to the end, complete your whole business strategy analysis. Do have a look at the free one you can download, my free one you can download online as well. Do sign up for that and get that one, and then you can compare your analysis with my own. Then when you come to practice, make sure you're practicing EL-based questions and you're using your analysis of the pre-scene in that context. Okay, I do hope you will go on and buy the videos. If you are interested, then please go and visit our website, and you can find all the videos on there. But if not, then I wish you the best of luck in your studies leading up to the exam, and good luck in the exam as well.